Okay, we're good to go.
Good evening. Welcome to the January 26, 2022 Henrietta Town Board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Councilmember Page,
Here.
Councilmember Belanca,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin the meeting with a silent prayer and a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular and organizational meeting minutes from January 3rd, 2022. Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve the January 7th, 2022 special meeting minutes. Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Our first public hearing for application number 2020-003 Delaware River Solar, formerly Namaste Solar, alterations to site plan and tree clearing limits, was withdrawn this afternoon by the applicant. It will be reheard at the next meeting. However, if anybody would like to provide public feedback, we can hear that now and have that on the record. The primary reason it was withdrawn is we had received word back from the DEC that there was a misunderstanding or miscommunication of terms between the applicant and the DEC. And so what the applicant thought they had approved and what the DEC thought they had approved were two very different things. So they need to adjust their plan accordingly. So rather than process that tonight, again, they since that came in late morning, early afternoon, we decided to, well, they elected to withdraw. So is there anybody who wishes to provide any input on this project at this time? Anyone online? Hearing none, then we will table this for the February 9th meeting. So I will keep the public hearing open for that meeting. Next up, we have application number 2021-034, the Fairways at Riverton Forest Creek Equity Corp. to construct 130 single-family homes. Do we have representatives? Yep. Can you come up and introduce yourself and your relationship to the project? I will note that this is a continuation of a previous hearing from 2021. There were some questions regarding the, primarily regarding the wetlands that we had conflicting statements from the Army Corps of Engineers. So I think that has been resolved. So go ahead and present.
Good evening. I'm Walt Baker with DSB Engineers. With me tonight is Jared Hurt, the attorney for Forest Creek Equity, and Richard Battisti of Faber Homes, also representing Forest Creek Equity. As the supervisor mentioned, I believe the last time we were here was early last spring, and there were 3 issues that were brought up, one being the wetlands, another one being the nesting for a bald eagle in the area along the river. And also the traffic study that we had prepared and was reviewed by the town consultant. So the issues were resolved as far as the wetland, as far as there was some non-jurisdictional wetland areas that were ID'd for DEC's wetlands throughout the center of the site. And they were obviously non-jurisdictional, so they weren't deemed to be waters of the United States. So we had actually had that area cleared early on, and those areas were actually allowed to be cleared. There was 3 other areas that are actually Army Corps regulated wetlands in the northwest corner. And we agree that those are jurisdictional, and we are not going to touch those areas at all. We designed the site, and we actually pulled the site in a little bit with our redesign because we resubmitted the application. So we're actually in with the town board for special use permit for 130 single family homes versus the original application you saw last spring, which had 2-unit townhouses and single family homes. So with that redesign, we actually pulled that further away from that regulated Army Corps wetland. So that should be a non-issue.
It also reduced the traffic impact as well, correct?
Correct. We went from 189 units, we're down to 130. So again, with doing that, we had to redesign or rework the traffic study for the project for 130 single family homes.
Right.
And so those were the 3 items that we talked about last spring. So we've got those resolved. And then recently, the issue with the East River Road corridor study and the funding for that, we're still gonna work with the town and try to get that resolved. I don't know if Jared wants to say anything about that.
Yeah, I became aware that there, I think was a disparity in the traffic count based upon what our expert had provided and what the town's expert had provided. So the understanding between the applicant and the town is that issue still remains outstanding. So the approval that we're seeking tonight obviously would be conditioned upon the parties reaching some resolution on that. And obviously on behalf of the applicant, we're reserving all of our rights as it pertains to that specific issue and to the mitigation fee itself.
So in discussions with the town attorney, the approach we are going to take is he rewrote the resolution tonight that it would approve it, that it's contingent upon paying the seeker mitigation fee for the East River Road corridor project. But that dollar amount will be set at the next town board meeting. Because of the dollar amounts involved, it has to have town board approval. So we can't just say, approve based on the number agreed by the, town attorney and town engineer. So, but this way, if you have to go out and get funding or whatever, you have so the special use permit per se won't necessarily be contingent. You just can't get a building permit for one of the units until you have paid the dollar amount.
Right.
Go ahead.
We understand. I did have a chance to look at Mr. Young's email. I think the February 9th meeting, I think is the next town board meeting, is probably a little aggressive in terms of timing, but certainly we understand that that's an issue and matter that we need to address with the town.
Right. And it can push back. I just didn't know what in other words, a lot of times they want to have ducks in a row so you can get out going construction in the early spring.
Sure.
So my point is, if the 9th is too aggressive, I don't think the town has any issue with pushing back to the 23rd. It just has to be clear that until that amount is set and paid, you can't pull a building permit. So, like I said, that's more your schedule. Just so that the rest of the town board, if you haven't had a chance to review that the email, the issue is when we did the study for the East River Road corridor, which was done as part of the comprehensive land use update from 2019, when it talks about traffic onto East River Road, that includes traffic that has to cross East River Road. Because that essentially puts an impact on the corridor itself. So those are the numbers that the traffic consultant for the applicant did not have included. Because the numbers came in so late, so one of the things they had to do was update the traffic impact study because of the reduced traffic counts. And in fact, if you read our consultants, there's a couple places where they still have to, you guys still have to reduce the counts accordingly. So I agree, you may want more time than the February 9th. I haven't even had, because it came in so late, I haven't even had a chance to review our consultant's numbers other than his cover letter. So, I can't even fully address as to, I'm of the town board members, I'm the person who's had the most experience with that whole comprehensive land use plan update in East River Road corridor. So I can't even tell these guys, hey, this is 100% consistent with what we had done. Rick was part of that project as well, the comprehensive land use update, but the other 3 individuals came on after that was done. So, anyway, like I said, we'll look forward and seeing the numbers, but again, I know the timing and these types of things. So we talked with the town attorney as to the ways forward. So if one option is to we hold the hearing tonight, but we don't actually vote until the numbers are in. The other option is that we use the resolution we have in place tonight, which says that the dollar amount will be set at a future meeting.
Yes, we'd like to proceed with the resolution that was proposed with,
Okay.
again, the understanding that, there's a reservation of rights on our end as it relates to that. So.
I'm not- what-
Supervisor,
Go ahead, Don.
if I may, the attorney for the town here, just to be crystal clear, my recommendation and preference is not to move forward with the special use permit tonight without these numbers being agreed upon. That being said, as a courtesy, the town appears to be willing to move forward with your application conditionally, so it's such that a number needs to be determined by the town on this number. So the condition is essentially that the fee is still going to need to be paid, but that the number, the amount of the fee will be determined at a later time by the town board. So this is still a conditional approval, and that no building permit would be issued until that fee is both determined and paid. If the applicant is agreeable to that, I think the board would be willing to proceed. If not, it would be best to wait.
We understand that it's a conditional approval.
Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to present on the proposal? Because we do have new board members since you guys last presented.
Just a brief recap of what we're proposing to do. Obviously, it's the 55-acre parcel. Everybody's familiar with it, adjacent to the golf
And
course.
We do have
and-
the drawings up on the screen, so if you want to refer to that,
There we
feel
go.
free.
All right, yeah, we sent it electronically.
Yep.
And early on, the supervisor, we worked with the town and the town staff regarding having a trail system that the town wants to incorporate into the project, and they asked if we would provide, what did we do, 25, 15 feet?
Yeah, so there was sort of
15
when we were talking with the
Yeah.
developer, they had expressed, so the access for Riverton Golf Course / River Bend Park bisected parcel A into 2 portions.
Correct.
And that was causing layout issues for the developer. And I said to the developer, well, one of the things that we're working on is a local waterfront revitalization plan, including a river walk. And the problem is we can't have the river walk through Riverton go right along the river because they'd be in danger from being hit by golf balls. So then we talked to the developer about the idea of, let's do a land swap. We will provide the access pathway in exchange for this 15-foot swath on the, essentially just outside the golf course. So that way the people walking on the river walk are not in danger of being struck by golf balls. So it was one of those mutually beneficial things, and I think it worked out great, and
Right.
very much appreciative to the developer for being willing to do that. One thing I will note, we have not heard definitively yet back from the state, but we do believe that it will require parkland alienation. So that area is gonna have to, we're talking about whether you can build the roads and the infrastructure across it, but you would not be able to do any site developments until that parkland alienation is completed. I've received word from both our state senator and our state assembly member that they are fine with this and will assist us with the process. But with parkland alienation, it has to go through the legislature.
Right. So
But-
basically, we're going to need to give you a description of this 15-foot strip of land, which, so the other board members understand it. It's the way the map is turned 90 degrees right now on the drawing, because that's the way it would fit best. So it's, if you look at it, basically along the top of the drawing as you see it now, which would be the west side, it's the entire length as the property angles change all the way down from the north end, which is to the right, and to the south end, which is to the left, which connects all along the golf course. So it's the entire length of the golf course would be that 15-foot strip of land. And it's the way I understand it, if the legislature has to adopt it, we're going to need to give you a description of land and actually subdivide that and transfer that off to you.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, what I've generally done is if the subdivision, if the subdivision is for property coming to the town, that will work to essentially take those, in other words, normally we have a charge for subdivision, we'll waive those fees and we'll work with the county to minimize any cost to do that actual subdivision. But yes, we're gonna need a description of the
The entire length.
the entire length. I think we'll check to see, I think we may already have a description of the portion that we're ceding, that we're alienating. But we're gonna need, because one of the things in the alienation process, as I wrote in my letter, and I don't remember if I copied folks from your team in on it, but my letter to the, our assembly member and senator, when you look at the two square footages, they're almost identical. That I think we actually get a little bit, we get a couple thousand square feet more than we're giving up. So I really can't see there being any issue with this. And like I said, both our senator and assembly member are in full support. So
Okay. Now, did you also want to include that? They rotated it for us. So now north is up. There was that one strip of land that you were talking about coming off our new dedicated road that would tie into this 15-foot strip of land. Did you want to include that in the description, or would that just?
no,
be a
that
separate
we're
access?
just not going to include that in the description of the land we're giving up.
Okay,
I just need the description of the 15-foot.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and we're gonna, obviously, with the development, we're providing sidewalks throughout the site and streetlights, and we also have the town and the supervisor, when we had some discussions about sidewalks along the length of the outside of the project, we're actually going to include a 5-foot sidewalk, concrete sidewalk for 1,500 feet on the outbounds of the property.
And one of the other things that there was a concern from the New York State DOT regarding sight lines along the outside curve of Lehigh Station Road. And they wanted to make sure that that area was kept clear of vegetation. Well, obviously a sidewalk will do that. So
Yes.
that sidewalk actually performs two functions, provides pedestrian access as well as improved sight lines for vehicles pulling out. This is for vehicles pulling out at the turn so that they can see in both directions far enough down the road so as to not pull out if there's oncoming traffic.
Right.
Yep.
Just a question, the Riverwalk piece. It appears to be along hole number 8 of the golf course, is that correct?
Correct.
So where does it connect to the other side where Breeze Park is? If you're walking that whole length down hole number 8, are they then going to go out into the side of the road and walk around? until-
So where in the LWRP plan, in fact, I just worked on this last night till about 5 or 6 in the morning. I've put the crosswalk for us to where the pump station is. And the reason is that's almost dead set in that long straightaway. So basically what would happen is as you come down to the end of their parcel, you can see where the wedge comes out. That's we would stay along hole 8 for a little while longer until we get to, like I said, almost directly across from the pump station. And we would put a crosswalk there. And my plan
Okay.
in the LWRP, we're talking about, if you've ever been to the RIT campus, they have these crosswalks that they have a sensor, and the instant you pass between them, the lights flash on the crosswalk sign. So it gives great visibility both day and night to that there are people in the crosswalk. And
There's
then
a-
from there, it stays on the side of the road, it crosses Harrogate Crossing, and then it enters Breeze Park,
Okay.
where Breeze Park meets.
So there's no plans for a sidewalk on the east side of the road from the crosswalk to Harrogate?
No, again, yes, that's what would be built under the LWRP.
I'm all set. Thank you.
That is the Riverwalk is along the east side, yep.
Very good. Thank you.
Right, and choosing that location for the crosswalk is the best location because of the curve in the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the straightaway area.
Yeah, I would love it if we could have come across at the golf clubhouse area, because then we wouldn't also have to cross Harrogate. But with that curve coming out of Scottsville, the people are flying around that curve. There's no way I'd want a crosswalk there. So we chose, like I said, that the center of that long straightaway area. That's going to provide the best visibility for pedestrians.
Thank you.
Hopefully at some point, I don't know if they will, but I wouldn't mind seeing them reduce the speed limit through this area, but it's New York State DOT,
That's New York
so
State DOT.
yeah, who knows?
Good luck. Yep. Thank you.
Yep. I will note that we also the applicant was able to obtain a letter regarding the bald eagle ecology. Again, the DEC does not like to reveal the actual location of the eagle's nest, but they basically said there would not be any issue from this project. There wouldn't be an impact on the eagle nest and its predation, so. Other questions?
So the one letter that I'm looking at for the regarding the wetlands indicates that there were 7 wetland areas and a tributary. But you mentioned that there were 3 that you're addressing?
3 that are jurisdictional. Correct. Those were in the northwest corner of the site. Those were actually jurisdictional under the Army Corps.
So jurisdictional basically means it's protected. The other ones are wetlands, but not protected. So for instance, if you look on the wetland maps, the water traps on the golf course are technically wetlands and they are labeled as wetlands, but they're not protected. They're not they're not natural. They're not feeding into the water system.
Gotcha.
They are, there's a number of reasons what makes them non-jurisdictional and able to be removed. Now, from a water surface standpoint, they're still going to have to deal with, make sure there's enough permeable surface, enough place for water to permeate through the ground. The sufficient retention or detention ponds to collect stormwater runoff, all that stuff is still gonna happen, but the non-jurisdictional ones, they don't have to stay out of the wetlands. And in fact, this was one of the things. So the last time when they went to do the initial clearing and grading a number of years ago, the Army Corps said, these are non-jurisdictional, go ahead, right?
Right.
And then for inexplicably last year, they said, oh, wait, those are jurisdictional. And we're like, well, that contradicts what you said 3 years ago. And oh, by the way, they were removed. So they're not even there anymore.
Yeah, for
it-
some reason, I think they had a new biologist or
Yeah.
something and didn't realize that they were, when I say non-jurisdictional, they're like an isolated depression
Mhm.
that actually just grew vegetation in it and as the topography changes. But if they're not connected to the waters, as they refer to it, connected to the waters of the United States, like it would be a drainage
Mhm.
area going through, and then there's a pond that actually conducts the water through it, then they're classified as non-jurisdictional. like
The other term you hear is a pocket wetland. It
Yeah.
just means it's sitting there all by
Yeah.
itself. So if they're part of the system that then effectively purifies the water before it goes out to the river, for instance, those are the ones that are protected.
Right. There's no
Obviously
defined
also-
discharge.
Right. Also, if it's, a significant ecology, like, Montezuma, right, I don't know if that discharges anywhere, but it's obviously a huge wetland ecology that supports a lot of wildlife. These little pocket wetlands are not that case.
Yeah, there were small areas that they were through the center of the site.
But so this parcel is strange in that it goes up and then it kind of squeezes in between the golf course and the throughway. I don't know why they did it that way, but who knows? There was one, I think it was wetland C in the northwest corner, just before in fact, part of it is down that extended portion of the parcel. That is the one that they had to adjust their plan to protect the wetland and surrounding buffer. And I think that's also where then you have a stormwater
Correct.
facility that then also can help feed that wetland as well.
Right. But obviously we'll design our stormwater facilities based on DEC requirements. So we'll have what they call a settling area or forebay, and then they have a micro pool. And so we'll design it accordingly, which we've done to all the sites.
Okay, so on this updated EAF, is this the area where I see a proposed pond? Is that?
Correct.
Is that what that's
Yes, it is.
taking care of? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, one of that forebay, the purpose of that, if you get any contaminants from pavement, from impervious surfaces, roof, pavement, driveways, whatever, it allows that to settle out and leach out before it essentially gets into the wetlands themselves and into the river. So that's the purpose of that multi-bay configuration.
Right. And that actually, the vegetation that grows up around it is the type of vegetation they want to see, which
Right.
end up getting cattails and such. So
Mhm.
actually, we're going to be creating a wetland.
Yep.
And in terms of the traffic, there's 2 exits out onto Erie Station Road?
Correct.
Okay. And are either one of those going to be signalized?
No, during the traffic study that was determined it was not necessary.
Okay.
And again, that's New York State DOT's decision.
Yeah, no, I didn't anticipate that New York State DOT would want to put in a signal over there.
And
It-
both of them are opposite existing streets, correct?
Correct.
One,
Yeah.
is it Countess and Scottsville West Henrietta Road? Are
Yes,
those-
that's right where the road, actually, the name changes by
Name
90
changes,
degrees.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Will there be any stop signs or anything like that that will be going onto Erie Station Road that we're aware of?
The stop signs will be for our development coming out onto the main road.
Okay.
To our knowledge, not putting any They
Right.
put it this way, New York State DOT, I've not seen anything from them indicating that they would make it a four-way stop.
Yeah,
That's where they came up with the site distance. They wanted, as the supervisor mentioned, they wanted the existing vegetation that's kind of overhanging now. They wanted that cleared back so the site distance would be better.
yeah. When I've been over there, it's getting out of that particular spot, and it
Right.
doesn't matter whether you're turning right or left. That's really terrifying. And it's hard for me to imagine that even trimming back vegetation, is going to provide enough safety for people to exit from that particular spot, particularly that first one that's across from Countess. The other one I can see, I think there's a little bit more space anyway for people to be able to exit. Anyways, it's just one of my concerns.
Other questions? Anything from the audience? Coming up?
Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. Good evening. Couple corrections to what Supervisor Schultz was saying. First of all, it's Erie Station Road Extension, not Lehigh Station Road.
Sorry, you're right,
Yes.
Erie Station. Yeah.
Yes, Erie Station Road Extension, and also the Saco River / Cahusaca Canal goes through Montezuma Swamp and then forms the Oswego River / Oswego Canal into Lake Ontario.
Thanks.
I assume that this abandonment of Parkland is part of the golf course, which is technically legally a town park.
Yeah, so, right, it's not part of the golf course itself, it's the access path to the golf course. We would be replacing that with effectively an expanded access to the golf course, so there would be both the river walk running north and south. And then this path would still connect to the system across the street from Countess, coming off of Countess Drive by the sidewalks that they're gonna have along the road. So, but because it's part of the same parcel and because it was created at the time of Riverton, including using housing and urban development funding, it is subject to parkland alienation. But there's no actual, what I'll call park activities that takes place in this particular portion of this parcel. It's an access. And it's primarily become a service access. You do occasionally see people walking down it, but it's not the most inviting in that regards. It has come into disrepair in some portions of it. So
And if it's part of the golf course, and if it was, of course, the town got HUD pork barrel money to buy the land to create the golf course in the former Riverbend Park on the peninsula on the west of it. I assume it would not only have to be passed by both houses of the state legislature, signed by the government, but it would also have to be passed by the state Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, the federal HUD agency.
I don't know whether HUD needs to sign off on it because again, the HUD money wasn't actually used for this portion. The HUD money was used to create the golf course, which is not being altered. So I don't know, but again, that's part of the parkland alienation process. And the State Parks Association has a whole schedule as to what we have to do and who we have to see. So we would be following essentially their dictates. But yes, I don't know about from whether it actually needs to be signed off on the governor, but I do know it does have to go through the legislature.
Well, I kind of, it's not life or death, and it's a want, not a need. But I was kind of thinking maybe the opposite should happen, and if the developers are willing to sell and the town is willing to buy and spend the money, that maybe the town buying the western portion of this land and adding it to the golf course, and then however many holes there that can't be accommodate, putting holes and expanding the golf course in the old Riverton Park Peninsula, and they have an 18-hole golf course.
Yeah, you unfortunately, so we already own Riverbend Park. The acreage of that part in between the golf course and the thruway is minimal. You would certainly not be able to make it an 18-hole golf course. The original plans was an 18-hole golf course, but years ago, the town sold that land. They did the Parkland alienation, and the money from there, proceeds from there, is what purchased Martin Road Park. It was effectively supposed to be the front 9. The current 9 holes were originally supposed to be the back 9. Those are in the area that you see like Sparrow and Hummingbird and those streets. I think Sweet Pea. That was originally supposed to be where the front 9 of the golf course was.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like I said, maybe like if the town was willing to buy and spend the money, and if the developer was willing to sell the western portion of the land, just east of the golf course, however many holes that couldn't be accommodated north or west on a River Park Peninsula.
Just so you know, that's the whole development.
I just wonder if well, just maybe not buy the whole. I don't want to definitely not buy the whole development, just this portion of it, just enough to get the holes.
The only way you could come close to getting to 18 holes, and there'd be some short holes, would be to purchase all of parcel A and then combine all of Riverbend. It's not, I don't know if our folks here know the acreage off the top of their head, but I've been doing a bunch of this mapping for the LWRP. I can tell you the golf course dwarfs parcel A from an acreage standpoint. So like I said, the idea of going to an 18-hole golf course, that was killed when they sold off the front 9 years ago.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep, coming up.
Mike Stafford, 32 Essex Drive, and former town board member. And when this came back before us last spring, I had a lot of questions, still have a lot of questions concerning safety, the clearing permit itself that they received that the developer mentioned tonight. And so I'm still trying to get some answers, and the EAF didn't provide a lot of information, much different than it did 6 months ago. So to start with, one of the questions I have is developers or anybody asking for a permit has to fill out one of these reimbursement forms. And over the years, anybody who's been on the board, we've seen a lot of them. The thing that jumped out at me was on number 2, where the developer would pay for any consultant fee or professional fees. And this contract was altered. I'd just like to know who altered it or who authorized it to be altered.
I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Okay, well then I think before the town gets stuck with a bill that we shouldn't be, maybe somebody should find out. Thank you. So next thing is they mentioned the clearing permit. Clearing permit, I'm not sure if everybody on the town board got to see that clearing permit. Was issued, I believe it was early January, probably of 2020. In that clearing permit, it said that they would not
You have the years right?
maybe Jay, maybe it was it 2020? Okay, maybe it was early 2021, excuse me.
No.
No, 2020, the clearing permit.
Okay, I don't remember us issuing a clearing permit, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, would you happen to have that? Okay, well, in that clearing permit, it said they could cut trees down, but they couldn't remove the stumps. Also, they wouldn't disturb the soil. I'm sure all of you have been there. I'm sure you know, because the resolution says you've checked into this thoroughly. If you see, they removed stumps. They have big piles of stumps that they've piled. There's huge ruts from the equipment when they took the equipment out. So they violated the clearing permit, in my view. I have one picture here of where if anybody wants to see it. would you-
Press it the first.
Obviously, those trees weren't just cut down. The stumps were removed and piled on top of each other. When it was brought up back in May of last year, they didn't do that. Well, I don't think these stumps just took themselves out of the ground and climbed on top of each other. I have others. Unfortunately, I didn't have them with me tonight.
Do you know whether those were trees that were killed by the emerald ash borer or not?
No, I don't. Either way, they would still wouldn't get their, they still wouldn't dig themselves out of the ground and pile on top of each other. And also,
You haven't been in my backyard. I'm not kidding. When the ash trees tip over, absolutely, their stumps do come up.
those stumps are on top of each other, piled over 6
understand
feet
that.
high, over 6
I
feet.
understand
Okay.
that. When and again, I'm not saying that that's
Right.
what's happening here. I'm just saying
Okay.
there is, if in my backyard, there are stumps. And rather than leave them there, I would absolutely move them, but it doesn't mean that I'm the one who pulled them out of the ground. Mother
Right.
Nature pulled them out when the tree died.
Okay.
So obviously that doesn't happen with the living tree.
Right.
But it absolutely can happen to some of the trees that were attacked by emerald ash borer.
The other thing that was mentioned was about the eagles, and there was brought up about second nesting spots. Well, the reason why there was no effect on this was because when they did the inspection, the trees were already gone. So obviously there wouldn't be any second nesting spots for the eagles in that area. So, so that's, and once again, there were huge ruts where the soil was not supposed to be disturbed.
Just so you know, the letter from the DEC, are you sure? I don't see where it mentions this secondary nesting sites. It says that although a bald eagle nest is known to occur near your project location, the DEC does not anticipate your proposed action to result in a taking because the property is far enough from the closest known nesting location that impacts the eagles are not anticipated.
Okay. Well, it was my understanding it was at the time before us, they were looking at a second nesting site.
I don't know.
So.
That's not what the letter from the DEC says. I'm just like, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I do have some questions on the EAF. It is different than when they brought it to us before. Let me just get it here. On page 5, and maybe somebody can explain. Usually when I've seen these before on big projects, will this generate liquid waste? And they have no. As far as I know, this will, sanitary wastewater. This won't. Do we have? Won't it create some kind of wastewater? This project?
Are you talking about our people going to flush their toilets? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I don't know because you tell me they have no checked on their EAF.
Chris?
So-
Mike, could you put your mask on and move aside?
Sorry.
So typically in that part of the EAF, and certainly Walt, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've probably done as many of these as I had. It's more, not so much waste from sanitary sewer waste, because in here, there's another section that covers sanitary sewage. Same thing with water consumption. I think it deals more with, waste. Does the facility itself generate any waste? Like, for example, if it was a commercial establishment or an industrial establishment where they're generating
Oregon foods freeze dried, would that count?
something like that, but it's not so much that's going into the sanitary sewer because that's covered elsewhere.
Gotcha.
So yeah, this facility is
it's-
going to generate, I guess I'm thinking more solid waste as opposed to waste that's going to go down to sanitary sewer and get treated somewhere else. There's another section in here that covers that.
Okay.
That,
Hold on one second, Mike. Yeah, it was at a different time, yeah. Go ahead, Mike. For this one, they'd absolutely be okay to pull stops, yes.
Okay, and just want to make sure that they have construction times, 7:30 to 5. I've had, we've heard in the past that certain developers don't abide by that.
Yep.
Just want to make sure that, is that the truth, or is, we've had conversations in the past about developers misleading people. Is that?
I'm not remember having ones
Well-
misleading people. There are absolutely some developers who don't communicate well to their, especially, sometimes it's themselves, sometimes it's that they don't communicate well to their sub crews. I will say that my deputy town supervisor absolutely stays on
Okay.
top of those.
Yep.
And notifies them, including he has issued stop work orders for repeat violators.
Good. Thank you.
I don't expect that behavior to change anytime soon.
No. And then.
Same with, I will also note, same with wastewater discharge. If they don't build a proper capture pond for during the construction phase, if they don't properly stabilize slopes and or ground surfaces, he will be on top of them. And as another developer stated unequivocally, Henrietta is probably the town that is best protected against violations of stormwater runoff in the entire county, thanks to our deputy town supervisor. I
Yes,
don't know that he was happy that we're the toughest, but he said, I can definitely confirm that he's worked in a bunch of towns and Henrietta is the one that stays on it the best. So.
Then we have, this property, it says it's well drained. I know when I walked through there, it did not seem well drained to me.
That will
I don't know
dep-
how.
that- So there are a lot of drainage avenues for it, but obviously if the topography creates a low spot, which is what those other non-jurisdictional wetlands were, water will pool there and it will become muddy and drainage. So if it's, I'm assuming, and again, we can ask, if you would like, I can ask the developers to address this afterwards, but I assume that that's being taken into account in their drainage plans and their storm sewer systems, so that water will be taken away so that they don't have those issues. The point is that this area does have a lot of places where the water can drain away without creating downstream problems, like we have a lot of communities in the center of town have that issue.
Okay. And then the, one of my final things here is on this, page here, it says, see attached Department of Army Engineer dated July 1, 2011. And once again, this is the same letter that I brought up, and it was with the packet today. Same letter I brought up prior. The Army Corps of Engineers said, basically said these wetlands were not wetlands but that was only good for 5 years. So that would have taken them to July 1 of 2016. Wondering why the new ruling, if that's what you want to call it, that they're not actually wetlands, where that is, and why can the residents see it before you approve this project?
Okay. Anything else?
And then and I'll just go to the safety concerns, Councilwoman Safranek brought it up, about the traffic issues over there. I spent a lot of time over there, when they first came in front of this project. I sat there one day for an hour and a half and watched traffic trying to pull out of Countess. It obviously is very tricky to pull out of Countess. I think cars pulling, and then when cars come out across from Countess now, it's going to even create more of an unsafe hazard. We obviously know anytime you add traffic anywhere, it increases a danger. There's no doubt. This project, I think, is much more dangerous than any average project, being on, both exits being on curves as they are, being at 55 miles an hour, use your words tonight, flying down there. So I believe it's a very dangerous project and shouldn't be approved. So, thank you.
Thank you. Please restore your mask. Thanks.
Thanks.
Could you guys, if you've got, could address the Army Corps of Engineer wetland? I thought I remember seeing a letter that essentially restated the July 11th
Right.
or July 1st, excuse me.
Yes, again, what he's referring to, which should be relooked at after 5 years if you're going to impact it, which again, the councilwoman stated those 3 areas up in the northwest corner, which we're not going to touch. So basically, there's no need to revisit them if you're not going to touch them. The ones through the center were not Army Corps regulated. They were DEC regulated and not regulated because they're non-jurisdictional. Because as you stated before, they're not connected to the waters of the United States.
And do we have something from either the Army Corps of Engineers or the DEC stating that? Something new?
I thought we had submitted that.
I thought so too. I just don't necessarily know. I thought I remember seeing that go by.
Right.
Wait, wetland report. What is this one? June 15th.
2021.
Yeah, there was the one about the bald eagle.
No,
endangered
I
species.
found the June 15th, 2021 letter. That's the one I was thinking of.
Right, okay,
I just hadn't scrolled far enough because it starts with a W. It was way at the bottom.
right.
Let's see, jurisdictional determination.
They are regulated. The JD expired in 2016 and therefore now all 7 wetlands and 1 tributary are regulated. New delineation based on the current regulations is required to be completed.
Right, they're referring to the 3 in the upper northwest corner.
It says 7. And then it does go on to say, that if the intention is to fill in any of the jurisdictional wetlands, you need the permits.
Right. The issue is that they were previously filled in, but permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and water quality certificate from New York State DEC will be required. So do you have those?
For the centerpieces?
More than just the centerpieces on
it's-
this particular.
Well,
map.
no, he's referring to the centerpiece as opposed to the 3 up in the corner. So yeah, so it's the ones that are in the middle of the in the middle of the project. Do you, in other words, I understand what you've been saying. Do you have a letter from the New York State DEC stating that?
For the center, I don't follow you as far as,
Do you have something from the New York State DEC saying that those
center
centerpieces
Areas-
are pocket wetlands and not jurisdictional?
non-jurisdictional, correct? Yes.
Do you have that?
Well, that goes back to the one from July.
Right. And again, the letter in 2000, this is the letter that former Councilman Stafford was referring to. And this is what put the pause to get here,
Mhm.
was that we needed something from the New York State DEC saying that because that 5-year expired, they needed a new JD saying those are not, they're pocket wetlands, they're not jurisdictional. If you guys put your masks on, step aside. Or-
Steve, if you may want to open up the DEC response to the bald eagle. That letter, I think, is pertinent.
Did it have something in there about the wetlands too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were referring to was, yeah, the October.
No, I'm, again, we get a lot of projects. These have come in over time. I have a recollection of seeing something. I just couldn't produce it. So that's why I wanted, let's see.
Yeah.
As reviewed, the proposed and determined the project is non-jurisdictional under Article 15. There is
Right.
no protected stream within the project areas. Article 24, freshwater wetlands. The project is not located within state designated freshwater wetlands or regulated 100-foot adjacent areas. Therefore, in Article 24,
Yeah, we submitted that. already.
so the only thing I guess do you have anything from the Army Corps of Engineers stating the update? So we clearly have something from the New York State DEC.
Yeah, but the Army Corps, it's not their jurisdiction.
No, it's not their protected waters.
It wasn't under their jurisdiction to respond because that area was under DEC jurisdiction.
No. Wetlands A, B,
Right.
Supervisor, might I suggest, this is the attorney, that you call up the Director of Engineering and Planning relative to that June 15th, 2021 letter. It does, we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about state wetlands and federal wetlands. The June 15th, 2021 letter really seems to be focusing in on federal wetlands. So I'm not sure what our engineer's thoughts are on that, but the map seems to show potential issues there that's attached to their letter.
so look, that was, I've lost that letter. What was that one?
It's listed under wetland report. It's the very last one in our packet.
June 15th, 2021
got
from
it.
BME.
But that one says that we need, that permits are required from,
DEC, which they said that they don't need them for that one,
but also from the US Army Corps of Engineers.
right, from the Army Corps of Engineers.
And a
Well,
water.
or they need this an update of this JD. So if they basically say, because again, according to the town's wetland consultant from BME, they're saying that the 2011 jurisdictional determination has expired. And so you just need something from the Army Corps of Engineers stating that as far as they're concerned, those are still non-jurisdictional wetlands. According to our consultant, that statement that they made in 2011 had a 5-year term to it. So in 2016 that expired, and it says, and therefore now all 7 wetlands and 1 tributary are regulated. And this is what we had talked about last year, and I can only find something from the DEC saying that they're not regulated. Do you have something from the Army Corps saying that 2011 jurisdictional determination still stands or is reissued or whatever?
Well, that's why I'm saying that this letter from DEC on October 21st, 2021.
That's with regards to the New York State DEC.
Correct.
From the federal, from the Army Corps of Engineer. Again, according to Martin Janda, the jurisdictional determination from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was issued on July 1st, 2011, based on field wetland delineation completed in 2010 for Conifer Realty LLC. The JD was valid for a 5-year period ending on July 1st, 2016. The JD issued in 2011 identified 7 wetlands, A to G, on the site, as well as 1 tributary. At this time, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers determined that some of the wetlands were not jurisdictional based on the former regulations addressing non-jurisdictional isolated wetlands based on their connectivity to navigable waters. That JD expired in 2016, and therefore now all 7 wetlands and 1 tributary are regulated, and therefore new delineation based on the current regulations is required to be completed and submitted to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for an updated jurisdictional determination. This is what we stated the last time you guys were here. He said, my site visit confirmed that that there are wetlands present on the site. And then he basically goes on to say, if the intention is to fill in any of the existing jurisdictional wetlands, permits from U.S. Army Corps Engineers and water quality certificate from New York State DEC will be required. You have that from New York State DEC. Do you have that from the Army Corps of Engineers?
I'm not sure if our consultant provided that, because I think his impression when I talked to him was that the fact that the ones that were in the center were deemed non-jurisdictional.
But that determination expired, and we explained that the last time you guys were here.
Well, I'll have to get with him and find out if he got another letter.
Okay. So I don't, again, this is why we delayed this in the first place. I thought we'd had both letters coming back. Otherwise I would have said, don't bother coming. If we don't have that letter, I don't see how we can move forward. And again, that letter from the Army Corps could state that the jurisdiction determination from 2011 is still applicable. It can issue a new one. But something has to basically say that they consider those pocket wetlands and not regulated.
Okay.
Obviously not using that exact terminology, but you get the idea.
I'll have to get with the environmental resources on that.
Okay.
Is that, excuse me, could we make that a condition to the approval? Based upon, I mean, the facts that we have?
With a number of other, I don't know.
Supervisor, if you don't mind, I think this is a prerequisite seeker issue that really needs to be addressed prior to issuing any conditional approval.
The problem with it is you can't do conditional seeker. We can do a conditional special use permit, but my understanding is we can't do a conditional seeker.
That, I would agree with that.
So therefore, we have to make the determination. Either we basically say filling in these wetlands would have a significant, it'd be an unmitigated significant impact and therefore have to issue a positive deck. Or you need to demonstrate that they are pocket wetlands and therefore there is no significant unmitigated or unmitigated significant impact remaining.
I think the issue is they no longer exist, as I understand it.
I get that, But again, according to our consultant in the 2021, the last time we were here, they said otherwise, and that's what put the thing on pause. And I didn't realize you had only gotten something from the Army Corps. So I apologize for missing that, or I would have told you not to bother to show up tonight, because we need that. That's the question that we needed answered last time. We still need it answered.
There's nothing from that.
Not that I got, unless Gene has it. Mhm.
Call Gene.
So we've got the Army Corps of Engineer wetlands ruling. We've got the traffic number. We can work on those in parallel. From the traffic study standpoint, again, ultimate determination of that, the safety of that road is the Army, or is the New York State Department of Transportation. And they don't seem to have an issue with that. I understand we don't always agree with the New York State DOT. But I don't know what else we can ask them to do, because the authority surrounding that has pretty much said that they can put it in, that as long as they keep that vegetation cleared back, they believe that there is enough, far enough sight line and long enough safe stopping distance for that intersection to become live. Will those people have a bit more difficulty getting in and out than others? Probably. I look at all the houses on Farrell Road Extension. It still amazes me that that is an uncontrolled intersection. And yet it happens all the time, and I'm not aware of that being a accident hotspot. That one doesn't have curves, but it has hills.
That's the issue, is the curves. I mean,
Right, but
I've come out of Farrell Road Extension and not felt like I was taking my life into my hands, but exiting from across Countess there, that's pretty terrifying.
right.
And
Well-
already there's been a lot of residents that complain about the traffic in through that area. I don't know that there's any mitigation that can happen, because that is just a hazardous area. I know that some residents have indicated that they wish there was some more signage, maybe some sort of curb adjustments or something along those lines, but
Curve or
Or-
curb?
curve, something like a barrier or something along those lines.
But again, that's not something that the New York State DOT goes along with.
No.
If their warrants state something, you can't change their mind. We couldn't even get them to slow the speed down at Martin Road when we did have accident hotspot. So Martin Road and West Road. Understood.
If we could go revisit the clearing permit issue, I know that this is something that former council member Mike Stafford had brought up a number of times, and it was a concern for me. Is this an issue that we've resolved going forward? That clearing permits are, what exactly is contained in clearing permits? We don't necessarily have to do it at this particular public hearing, but
To answer your question, yes, we have changed the timing and oversight of clearing permits. So one of the things that we've talked about is for ones like this, unless there is the clearing permit so far ahead of approval are the ones we're trying to avoid, because you run into the issue of somebody comes and clears the land, then they don't get their approval, and now you've wiped out a bunch of trees and the land just sits, and then typically scrub grows up in its place. So we have changed that. we also, again, in fact, we've got two folks that deputy town supervisor is, shall we say, talking to right now because of them not fully following their clearing permit that they went in, appear to have gone in excess of their clearing permit. So we are absolutely on top of those a lot more.
Is there clearer restrictions as to what is allowed to be cleared, as in hardwoods not being ripped out and wetlands filled in?
That is totally project dependent.
Okay,
There, you know, depending on what's been approved and not approved, there's not necessarily a restriction on hardwoods. You know, that gets into, that's something you look at when you're doing your secret determination.
the clearing permit is issued prior to the secret determination, though.
That's, again, that's part of why we are looking to change that, because obviously, well, there should have been an associated seeker action if it was a clearing above a certain number of acres. That should automatically trigger a seeker action. So correct me if I stray there, Don. Is that correct?
Ideally, before issuing permits, we would get through the seeker process.
Right. My point being, though, it isn't one of the types of actions automatically triggered upon clearing a certain number of acres or more.
I believe, yeah, you mean, right, the classification of the seeker?
Correct.
Yeah, I believe so.
So again, we are absolutely paying more attention to clearing permits and when that happens, and as well as the seeker process involved within it. So some of the procedures, I will just say, were, for lack of a better way to describe them, legacy.
Mhm.
And until an issue came up, we didn't necessarily, some of the ones we were, for lack of a better way to put it, proactive and change the processes ahead of time. That's one of them that when this problem first occurred is when I believe it was this project that we then changed the way we do that.
Okay.
So going forward, it is fixed. I don't think that we can in any way use what happened in that clearing permit. I don't think that can actually come into effect with regards to this particular determination. Is that correct, Don?
Well, the clearing permit's already been issued and resolved, right? So
Closed, right.
I think you're dealing with more of a code enforcement or an enforcement issue, right?
Right, but I'm
Potentially.
surprised if the statute of limitations is expired on that as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on the timing, but again, I think you're talking about an enforcement issue and not an issue relative to the approval. We've dealt with this kind of issue before, right? When we have to separate out the idea of an enforcement issue versus
Right.
looking at an application that's before us and then judging whether it's appropriate for what's proposed.
Right, right.
Yep.
So again, to follow up on that, if there was an issue with the behavior during the clearing, we need to address that separately from this process. The fact that they violated a clearing permit in the past, we can't now, and let me be clear. The fact that they allegedly violated a clearing permit in the past, because no determination has actually been made on that, but the fact that they allegedly violated a clearing permit in the past does mean we can withhold or deny approval on this. This has to be on the merits of this particular application. With that said, if we find there were violations, we could fine the developers for those violations, assuming the statute of limitations haven't expired. But
Yeah, I mean, we can't go back and, restore those wetlands or replant those old trees. So I think at this point, all we can do is look to future projects and hope to protect the areas in Henrietta.
And like I said, what we've done now is that they can't get that clearing permit until the the project seeker process, and they have to have the plan. I don't remember if we required full site plan approval, but if there were special use permits, like, or like if it was a, subdivision, they had to have initial subdivision approval, I believe is what, yeah, Chris is nodding his head. So we require that now, which again, any of those type actions require this often a coordinated review seeker action. So that is done first. So again, we can't change what was done in the past, but we can fix the process going forward. Okay, any other comments from the public? Anybody online? I assume that no one's been able to find some letter from the Army Corps of Engineers that states that previous jurisdictional determination still stands?
Not at this point.
Okay,
We'll look into that, but I was just talking to Richard. I believe when this determination was made back in 2011, I mean, we got the clearing permit was in 21. I mean, I believe those areas, those isolated areas
I
through the
don't
center.
It was in 20, January of
20, okay, 20. However, this determination about those center areas being non-jurisdictional, they were filled in within that 5-year period. So I just need to come up with some documentation. that
when were
shows-
they filled in?
I was just asking Richard about it. He believes it was 2015,
Okay,
and this was 2011 was the determination. It said
Right.
it was good for 5 years, so that would have been 16. So I think, again, we're talking about a non-issue here, that it was.
well, like I said, if we could get something from the Army Corps that says that they agree that it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
That would
Okay.
be very beneficial.
All right, and I'll get with Chris Martin regarding this as well.
Yep.
All right,
So then, yeah, we're gonna have to obviously table the determination. And I'll hold the public hearing open till the next meeting. If you're unable to get the stuff resolved, if you could let us know by let's see, so by February 3rd as to whether you're gonna be ready for the 9th, that would be great, so we can schedule accordingly.
all right. Again, as Jared mentioned, yeah, we're gonna have to work with the traffic consultant as well, so.
Yep.
The 23rd might be more realistic, but we'll
Right.
definitely be in touch with you.
Right, so as long, basically, we make we start to put the agenda together on the 3rd.
Yes,
So if we know, we'll put it on the agenda for the 9th. If not, we'll leave it off till the 23rd.
well, Jennifer's real good about following up.
She is. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's great,
Okay,
definitely.
well, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this subject?
That's what I mean.
Hearing none, then we will close the session, public hearing session for this evening, but we were going to keep the public hearing itself open until either the 9th or the 23rd, depending on when the material is ready. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
very good. Understood, thank you.
Next up, we have a public hearing for a proposed local law to amend the Henrietta zoning code to require a special use permit for retail firearms and ammunition sales. Anyone from the board who wishes to speak regarding this subject? This one was originally put forth by then Councilman Stafford. He just found it strange that you needed a special use permit to build a restaurant, but you didn't need one to open a gun or ammunition store. I think I captured that correctly. If there's no one from the board, I'll open up to the public. I'm going to let Mike speak first, since this was originally his.
Thank you, Supervisor. As Steve said, I was contacted by a couple how at the time when a new gun shop opened in a retail section, wondering how they can just open it up. And I was kind of shocked to find out that we had approved one a couple of years earlier, but because it was in a industrial area, it needed our approval, but for a retail area, it didn't need our approval. And so several residents and Councilwoman Safranek contacted me also and asked me about it originally. And so that's why I presented it. And I thought it would be good that they have to get a special use permit. And I would hope that you guys would agree and vote in favor of that. Thank you.
Kevin?
Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. First of all, would events from outside groups of selling or raffling guns or ammo such as at the Dome Center or one of the hotels, what would they need a special use permit for that?
Typically, they need an event permit. But this is specifically for a retail store, so.
Okay,
something
so
permanent.
and also, and then my other question was, I guess like the Legion has as sportsman's raffles, they raffle guns and ammo in the fall and spring. We're not in pandemic, and any other clubs or fraternities like them having certain events, they wouldn't need this wouldn't apply to them needing a special permit for those events.
As long as they're not planning on becoming a retail seller of firearms, no.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, I guess I'd say to Becky, is the veterans local, I found it, never mind, found it. I was just looking for the local law. One of the things I just realized, I know we talked about it for commercial districts. Did we by any chance include the planned commercial district, the PCD, AKA the Wild West?
For the special permit, Steve?
Correct.
Let me take a peek here.
Okay, this just seems to be the title purpose amendment. It looks like it's only 295-14B.
Yep, that's right.
So as it currently stands, just to be clear, right, with this law in the planned commercial district, which is that section that essentially from Highland Drive over through Marketplace Drive. I think it goes a little bit beyond that. But that area, they would not need a special use permit. Of course, they also don't need a special use permit for restaurants. They don't need, there's a lot of things that, for whatever reason, when they created that area, it has minimal setbacks, it has minimal requirements. I don't know whether people feel the need to add that section to this. I would assume, Don, if that were the case, we would have to re-advertise. Is that correct?
Yeah, or we could amend it at a later time if we find
Right.
that to be useful.
Yeah, my point is that because it's adding a whole other section, if we would have to re-advertise the current law, to me, it makes more sense. Let's just do the current law tonight. And if we want to add the PCD, we can put forth a local law to add it to the PCD.
That makes sense to me, Supervisor.
Mr. Supervisor, Kevin Wilson, Director of Building and Fire Prevention.
Yep.
Just looking through the code 295-20 for the PCD, 2F, any other business or commercial use not specifically enumerated shall need a special use permit if not prohibited by 295-15. I don't know if that will cover this.
Problem is, do they have the clause, any retail business as a permitted use?
Well, it says retail or department stores.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they would come in under, so.
Okay. I was just looking through there. All right.
What we had done under, when we did the cannabis laws, is we basically said any retail business, we modified that line that says that is not covered under essentially the section that says it needs a special use permit or the section that says it's prohibited. And the reason being, we could see somebody coming in and say, well, I want to put a cannabis shop in this B2 location because it says permitted use is any retail. This is retail. So that's why we modified that language. So, but I often forget that the PCD, it's handled somewhat separately. So sorry if we didn't think about that one, but I just thought about it now. Any other feedback from the public or from the board? So again, we won't bother trying to, I would recommend we do not bother to try to amend this because we would not be able to vote on it tonight. It would have to be re-advertised anyways. We're better off just get this in place, and then there's going to be other local laws regarding the changing and coding. In fact, I've written up the one that I'd like to see put in place for restaurants. In that local law, we could potentially add this as well, or it could be two local laws. We could separate it, whatever. But the point is, we're going to be calling for a bunch of updates anyway. I'd rather keep it separate that way someone could vote for one and not the other. But any other questions on that? Becky, is there anybody online who wishes to provide feedback?
None with their hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So hearing no further comments, I am going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta zoning code to require a special use permit for retail firearms and ammunition sales. Next up, we have a proposed local law to provide tax exemption for volunteer firefighter and ambulance personnel. Is there anyone on the board who wishes to speak on this?
I think it's a great idea.
Yep, I agree. I think it's a really nice idea.
And I'm kind of crowed at the Council of Governments meeting that Henrietta was one of the first towns to adopt this law, because the law just went into place in December, and by the first meeting after the law went in place, we had already had a resolution calling for the public hearing. So anybody in the public who wishes to speak on this, either in person or online, come on up.
Mark Bennett, 89 Elverstone Way. Sorry, my glasses are fogging up.
You can pull your mask down while you're talking at the
Okay.
podium. Just restore it when you leave.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I appreciate everything the volunteers do. I at one time was a volunteer fireman. And there's a lot that takes place, and it's a lot of time consuming. I have nothing. I think this is a great idea and everything. I just had a few questions about how the town is going to handle some of the things, and I can read through them all and you can answer them afterwards, or we can go through them one by one. But a couple of questions I have was, what is acceptable to be a volunteer? For example, during the training program or after they are qualified to go on full on the scene situation? Because I know there's a training process before you could go out to a fire or to be in the ambulance. What qualifies that?
Hold on a second. So we'll do them one by one. To
Sure.
my understanding, that is addressed in real property tax law 466.
Okay,
If not, we will get the recommendation from the New York State Department of Taxation as to what their definition is. But our local law specifically references real property tax law, section 466-K,
okay,
which is what governs it. We're not trying to change those rules. We're abiding by the rules set by the county.
so part of my question was, it's a certification that they have to have. And I didn't know if that has been looked at as far as how is one going to manage all these certifications, just to make sure that nothing's getting slipped through the cracks.
So our assessors department does that with all the other Cold War veterans, all these other different limited income. There's a whole bunch of them, including, so obviously, once you're a veteran, if you've gotten approved, you don't have to renew. But ones for like limited income, they do have to, normally they have to come in every year. During the pandemic, they've actually, a couple times, the governor and or legislature has said that we will accept anyone who was eligible the prior year is automatically eligible this year. But again, the assessor's office is set up to do that. And our town assessor was one of those leading the charge to put this in place. So
Okay.
they are prepared to do that. And again, what they have to check for is defined by real property tax law.
Okay, so you may have answered quite a few of my questions, because I know it's a 2-year requirement before you can get. And it's part of the 466K. Do you know if, say, a volunteers as a fireman and also as an EMT, is it just 10% or is it going to be 20% for them?
I don't know that off the top of my head. That would depend on what the way it's worded in the real property tax law. I will ask our assessor, Michelle, if she knows that answer, if she could chime in. If not, if she can look it up to see if she might be able to find that answer. I suspect it's capped at 10%, because I think the way it's worded is anybody who is one of these things can get this exemption, but that exemption is capped at 10% of their property value. But I'm not 100% certain on that.
That's what I assumed. That's what I didn't see anything other than that.
I will note that some towns have pulled in the current language from 466K. We didn't do that. We specifically reference 466K so that if it ever changes and there's clarifications, we will always follow what the state guidelines are. I've always thought it's a mistake to copy the current stuff, because then if it changes, now your laws are inconsistent with the state, and then you potentially have to go and update your local laws. It makes a lot more sense to essentially reference the state tax law.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good
Can you
evening.
folks hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Hi, this is Michelle Nicodemus, Henrietta Assessor. I just wanted to touch quickly on an earlier question as well. Just so you know, we do have a volunteer emergency worker that is part of our staff here in the office. She's affiliated with a lot of the different groups and associations surrounding these groups of people that are hopefully going to be applying for these exemptions. And she is actually the one that also screens our exemptions to make sure that whoever applies is qualified. So just so you know, we do have a great person in place to do just exactly what you were asking. And it is, yes, it is the 10% exemption versus, I think you said the 1%. Let's see, shall be granted the 10% exemption as authorized by this section for the remainder of his or her life, as long as his or her primary residence is located within such county, et cetera, et cetera. So she, and like I said, she would screen for whether or not, their residence is qualified, whether or not their years of service and training meets the qualifications as well.
Okay, great. So I assume with all that, the background check, like the property tax, somebody's verifying that what they're submitting is where they live and not their hunting cabin or something else.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And I will note that they have to be a or serve in the volunteer organization that services Henrietta.
Correct.
So
Yes,
if they are a volunteer in the Chi-Li Fire District, they would not get this exemption.
Yeah.
Correct.
Be both a resident and a volunteer in the same town.
Okay. I think you've answered all my questions.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Just for information purposes, I'm the liaison to emergency services in Henrietta currently right now today. We have 3 people that qualify in the CHS ambulance corps and around 35 firefighters who meet the qualifications of volunteer and living in Henrietta. There's also a 20-year section too in that rule, but the ambulance and the fire have to submit to the town, the certified people who live in Henrietta and their length of service to the emergency district, either fire or ambulance. But right now, there's 3 ambulance. They're all women who volunteer there, and none of them are firefighters. And then, the volunteer firefighters that would qualify and live in Henrietta right now are around 35.
And when I added up, if I remember the number correctly, this is off the top of my head, so it may not be quite accurate, but it was somewhere around, if I remember, it was like the impact of the school district, because we've also, I approached the school district about them enacting this as well, because I will note that each taxing jurisdiction, so that's town, county, school district, and fire district, they each must enact this law, local law, or else it doesn't apply to their portion of the tax code. So the county legislature has put it forth. Obviously, the town is putting it forth. The fire district has put it forth. They're also, again, they've called for a public hearing, so they haven't enacted it yet, but they are planning on enacting it. I have not seen anything from the school district,
Last night.
last
They
night.
did
Great.
it last night. with the-
It went through last night.
Yeah.
So their impact was about, I think it was only like $28,000. I mean, it's not a huge impact. Obviously, it's a big impact for the individuals, but because we're talking, again, approximately 38 people. So that was assuming that they live in an average house. Obviously, I didn't go out and pull all their addresses and all that stuff and do the actual full calculation. But assuming the average house value, it worked out to be about $28,000. So what that means is that the rest of the town essentially has to pick that up. To give you an idea, that's $28,000 reduction on a $4 billion total assessed value. So it's 0.00 something tiny percent. I think if I remember correctly, it worked out to like 15 cents a person.
Okay. You do bring up a question. I noticed that in the 466K, it said for Monroe County, it was 10% unlimited, where other counties it was up to $3,000. So I was wondering what spurred that on. It's
You'd have to ask the county. The county put that forth, not us.
okay.
If you'll notice there, there's A through K, each one,
Yeah.
they're slightly different. The county just apparently did not believe it should be capped.
That's fine.
It gets into, there's 2 different definitions of what's equitable, right? Is it the same dollar amount or is it the same percentage?
Mhm.
They believed what was equitable was the same percentage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Or at least I assume that's their belief because that's the route they went. I can't speak for their motives, but. Any other questions on that?
Supervisor, attorney here for a minute, if you don't mind.
Nope.
Wanted to hop in. Councilman Page had mentioned, and I wanted to bring this to your attention because it was brought to my attention recently by somebody else as well. Our law provides for the exemption for actively enrolled members of incorporated fire companies in ambulance services. There is a separate provision under 466K that provides a lifetime exemption for people who have served for more than 20 years, for 20 years or more. It's not something we discussed. I'm not sure if it's something the town is interested in. It's not currently incorporated into the local law, but it is something that's permitted to also be included if the town so wishes.
And that's in 466K?
Yes, but I don't think it comes under our law because ours talks about enrolled members of incorporated fire companies, fire departments, and incorporated ambulance services. And this section here talks about people who have served for 20 years and aren't necessarily enrolled anymore.
If I may, Don, there's also, it indicates that there's a local option to extend the exemption to widows and widowers.
Let's see if that's true. Widow.
Oh, widowers.
Yeah, they stated as the unremarried spouse of a deceased member.
Hmm.
Oh, except in Monroe and Ulster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was saying I don't see that coming up here.
Yep, sorry.
It's okay. So the question then to the board is whether they want to include that additional lifetime exemption for someone who has 20 or more years worth of service.
I believe the school district did last night.
Hi, this is Michelle Nicodemus again. So it appears that 466K, if I'm reading this right, item number 3, is that where you're getting the
Yes.
20-year service piece that you're addressing?
Correct.
Okay, so the way that I read it was that it was, let's see, located when such conference. Thereof, that yes, I believe it, yeah, it does require the adopting of a local law, I guess kind of adding, I didn't see the widower piece, but the 20-year service member piece, I believe, yes, is the, like you said, the addition of a local law.
The widower, Michelle, someone read the widower does not apply to Monroe County.
Okay. Explains why I didn't see it.
Supervisor, I think you could kind of in a pretzel-like manner twist yourself into making the argument that the 20-year exemption comes within our law, but I don't think it's clear. So if the board does intend to also include that, I would suggest, doing so explicitly.
Would that require us to re-advertise, or would we be able to vote tonight?
I think that's a close call, to be honest.
You think it would what?
I think that's a close call.
Close call.
That's legalese for, we should advertise.
Well, I don't know if this has any bearing, but in the section right before that 466K number 3, it does say that it shall be the duty and responsibility of the municipality, school district, and or fire district which adopts a local law, ordinance, or resolution pursuant to this section to determine the procedure for the certification. So it sounds like it's giving us rein to
Right.
include it or not.
Right. There's a little ambiguity, although I will note that it says including all subsections thereof in our local.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Because we have that in the current law, maybe we can take the position that us just more clearly reciting what's already been advertised doesn't require re-advertisement.
Right. Because it does say that we included all subsections, and the portion on the 20-year is one of the subsections, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
An enrolled member of an incorporated fire company, fire district, or incorporated volunteer, or such enrolled member and spouse. Yeah, so what would we need to include? Unfortunately, finding local law 466K is tough on the web because they don't. I think I have to go to the bill.
What are you looking to do, Supervisor?
I wanted to look at the actual wording of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 466K, real property owner by an enrolled member of an incorporated fire company. Taxation to an enrolled member unless all of the following. So it would be section C, an enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated military who accrues more than 20 years of active service is so certified. So we would have to include. So,
Subsection 3.
right, so under this thing, it does say they, let's see, I just want to see the difference in the wording. Because they're in section 1, they say any enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service. And under 3, they say also enrolled member for the remainder of his or her life.
As long as his or her primary residence is located in the same place.
Right, so I think if we're gonna say it, I want to get back to our wording. I'm just trying to put together how we're gonna,
I already modified it, Supervisor, and sent it to you.
okay,
If you want, yeah.
let me pull that up.
And we're under the assumption that we're all for the 20-year exemption piece, correct?
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
I sent it to you for your consideration.
we would have to vote on that
That's
to
what I was
amend it,
thinking,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. I've changed my password since I last logged onto here. I'm like, it's January 7th, that's. Okay,
Very cold. Yeah, I was looking at my jacket. wondering
got
if
it,
it's,
Don. Okay, let me, okay. So it would now say, additionally, any enrolled member of an incorporated fire, volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated. Right, am I reading the right thing?
Yeah, yep, I just added section 2.
So is it
I added a new section 2.
the B for us?
Or B, yep.
Okay, so it basically say, and A is the original language. B says additionally, any enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service who accrues more than 20 years of active service and is so certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated volunteer ambulance service shall be granted the 10% exemption as authorized by this section for the remainder of his or her life, as long as his or her primary residence is located within the town. So it essentially pulls that, makes crystal clear that it also applies to that. So what we will have to do is,
Can I make a motion?
yes, you can make a motion. So basically, you're going to make the motion that we include paragraph B as written by the town attorney.
Right. Mr. Supervisor, I can make a motion regarding the 20-year lifetime exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance service and incorporate section B within our resolution and law.
Second.
Okay. No, I mean, I guess here's a question. We're not, the motion isn't on the table right now. I just realized that. We may have to hold that
This is the
motion
public
until.
hearing, yeah, but
This is
No,
the
we're
public
still in the
hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah, we're still in the public hearing. Oops.
Can we pass the motion to modify the law now?
That, Don?
Yeah, I think you can do that. I mean, you're talking about it.
The only thing I have is that from a numbering standpoint, I would rather do it when we have that motion
Okay.
present. Do you agree, Becky, that it would be simpler to do it as part of the amendment when that?
This,
motion is-
this won't technically have a number. It's like, a motion rather than a full resolution. So I won't number this one specifically. So I'll leave that up to you.
Okay,
It's just to amend it and then we'll vote on the actual resolution when we get to it,
right.
the amended one.
I personally, I think I'd rather have it all in one location. So
Okay.
when someone's going through the records and they
Yeah.
read it. Okay. So I am going to note that we are not going to act on this motion
I'll
until.
withdraw the motion.
So Mr. Page withdrew the motion. He will represent it when we get to the actual
Resolution.
resolution. So
Okay.
any other public comment? Mike?
Thank you. Mike Stafford, 32 Essex Drive. Besides being a town resident, also a Henrietta Fire District Commissioner. I don't think there's any residents in town that would object to our men and women who volunteer for us, object to a 10% discount on their property tax. And I, hope, and I'm sure everybody up there will vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone online? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to provide tax exemption for volunteer firefighter and ambulance personnel. Next up, we have a public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta Town Code relating to the Cold War veterans exemption to increase the benefit beyond the minimum. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Coming up?
Kevin Yost, 1474 Mill Road. I would assume that this would also include veterans of the Korean War and Vietnam War and Grenada and Lebanon and probably Panama as well, since those took place during the Cold War. And actually, Desert Storm as well took place during the Cold War.
There is a specific definition for the Cold War. I believe it's years of service. It's between these particular years when there was not an active declaration of war from the United States Congress.
Actually, there has not been a declaration of war from U.S. Congress since Pearl Harbor in 1941.
I understood. I'm just saying that's what, now there's other ones that specifically cover some of the conflicts. But like I said, the definition of Cold War, let's see if it's in here or if it's in the, but there is an actual definition for Cold War veteran. And Michelle, feel free to chime in if you know where that's located.
Yes, I'm looking for the actual dates right now. And so just to address your concern, we do have another exemption in place called the alternative veterans exemption that does provide property tax exemptions for those that served in the type of conflicts that you mentioned.
Okay.
And the dates are September 2nd, 1945 through December 26th, 1991.
Thank you.
So I know we closed on the existing people for the exemption for the fire and ambulance and stuff. Does that cover people that have served prior? So let's say somebody was.
If they're no longer serving,
Mhm.
they would not get it under Clause A. If they previously served more than 20 years
They
and
would.
can prove it,
Thank you.
it would apply to them.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize for.
No
going back.
problem. Okay, well, I can stop my search. I was going to find that answer, Don. You beat me to it. Okay, does that answer your question as to what that covers?
And Don, would you mind repeating those dates one more time?
Yep.
As the assessor
Go ahead, Kevin.
as the assessor mentioned, those conflicts that I mentioned are covered under, it's the dates that the attorney mentioned.
Right. Okay, thank you. Don, go ahead and say the dates again.
Sure. Yeah, those dates are September 2nd, 1945 to December 26th, 1991.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. So, most recently, and I'm trying to find the update, within the last few months, actually, there was a change of the, beginning dates. It was an amendment, I think, of sorts. And so we did actually contact some of the veterans in our municipality that were classified as, not having the Cold War status, and being able to change to the appropriate exemption within those newly applied dates, the newly applied starting date of the qualification. Unfortunately, I can't find that particular amendment right now, but I'll keep looking.
What did we do as board members before we had computers and phones and all this? To look up all this information. We would have to table everything and come back late. I mean, it's amazing that we can get our hands on this stuff.
Yep. Okay. With all this I'm doing, I'm gonna run out of power before we ever get to the resolutions.
Yeah.
Any other comments regarding the Cold War veterans exemption? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for the proposed local law to amend the Henrietta Town Code relating to the Cold War veterans exemption to increase the benefits beyond the minimum. Finally, this one is not a public hearing, just a quick discussion because I know it's come up in a lot of stuff. I want to just have a quick discussion of New York State Supreme Court ruling on Governor Hochul's authority to issue mask mandate and how it affects the town. So one of the things I will note, a lot of people hear Supreme Court and think it's like the federal system where SCOTUS is the highest appellate court in the land. That is not true in the state. There is the New York State Court of Appeals, which can overturn a Supreme Court ruling. The New York State Supreme Court is the supreme trial court, but they are not the supreme appellate court. So the state did appeal the ruling to the Court of Appeals. They did issue a stay, which basically means that the mask mandate is still in effect until the ruling is made by the State Court of Appeals. The judge was very clear that he was not saying that mask mandates are illegal. What he was saying is that the governor did not have the authority to unilaterally issue the mask mandate. If you recall, near the end of Governor Cuomo's term, the legislature pulled back a number of powers of the governor, pulled them back into this legislature, including that ability. And so unless the legislature, this is my interpretation of how this, I think, is going to happen at the Court of Appeals. I have not read the case, the appeal that the state has put forth, so there might be information in there that I'm not aware of. But basically, the way I see it, unless the legislature either restores that authority to the governor or issues their own mask mandate, then I do expect that eventually the Court of Appeals will say that the governor lacked the authority to issue the mask mandate. One of the things that is clear is that the school board does have the authority to issue a mandate. The town has an ability to issue a mask mandate or a mask requirement regarding their facilities. There's nothing illegal about those requirements. It's just that the governor couldn't force us to do one. So if you'll recall last summer when the infection rates were down, the town relaxed its mask requirements, and I fully expect to do the same. If we get to a situation, I suspect we're going to see that we're going to have the cold, flu, and COVID season going forward. When infection rates get super high, and in my opinion, it should be whether it's COVID or influenza, that we might look at reinstituting a mask requirement, because whereas I too hate wearing masks, I have and this board has the health and safety of our town employees to deal with, as well as our residents who come in, during crowded times, especially like during tax collection season. So, I know we have some very outspoken individuals who are very much against mask requirements. I don't know what to say other than I'm sorry you feel that way, that, I just, like I said, when I look at the data, when you look at the very few number of influenza samples, basically samples that tested positive for influenza last year, because of the amount of mask wearing, it was down tremendously. Are they perfect? Of course not, but they do greatly reduce the risk. We've actually had a very good track record up here in town hall that obviously we're doing something right, because we've kept infections to a minimal. And in fact, most infections in the town occurred through their family, not through the town. So I continue to stand by those decisions that we've made with that regards. We always try to balance safety and convenience. It's never all one or all the other, but like I said, that's kind of where I stand. And to my knowledge, I've not heard the board. They might not agree with me 100% on this, but in general, no one has put forth the idea to change that when we've put these in place. So, but I'll open it up to the rest of the board if anybody wants to concur or offer an opposing view on that.
I'll concur, actually, and I'm in complete support of where you are on this. I work in the public schools, and that's been one of the things that has been instrumental in allowing the schools to stay open for the last, what are we talking now, 22 months.
Right.
And you're right, it's a complete inconvenience. I feel like I don't have the same personal relationship with my students because I can't see them speak. I can hear them speak, but I think that it is a decision that where we have to weigh the public good over the inconvenience factor.
I will say that my one son, who is particularly shy, actually loves the mask because he gets to hide behind it. Anyone else wish to chime in?
I'd just like to say, as an educator and someone who works in a school, I love the fact that everybody wears a mask at flu season, because generally speaking at flu season, but talking about reinforcing COVID safety, I think just being aware of other people's vulnerabilities is the priority. So maybe healthy individuals, particularly those who are vaccinated, are at very low risk of catching or suffering harm from COVID, but there are many individuals that have severe immune compromised systems, and they also have a right to use town facilities and feel safe using them.
My personal feeling is the health and safety of our community, our families and our children override the individual the individual decision for parents to refuse to wear a mask. The problem is we don't have enough information. The mask certainly makes a difference. And I worry that infecting elderly, immunocompromised, older people, people with medical issues is far more significant than maybe the uncomfortable need to wear the mask. So for the general public and for the good of everyone, we need to go right back and continue the way we have it until other decisions are made.
I understand that people want, feel that constitutionally, they should have the right to mask or not mask. And I do understand that. And as the grandparent of little ones, I do see it's just such a different world for them. You know, I think I was mentioning to everybody, I have a granddaughter who's in kindergarten and she won't eat her lunch because the only time she gets to see her friends' faces is at lunch, and they like to make faces at each other. And, you know, they don't really know. I think if they took their masks off, they wouldn't know who they're in class with because they only see them in masks. And, you know, I've talked to her about it and she's like, but Grandma, I have to make faces at my friend. That's what we do to play now because there's no interaction like we were used to going to school. You know, I mean, we talked to our friends and we hugged our friends and we played with our friends. And I understand the difficulty with the younger population, but I also have a father who's extremely, you know, if he caught COVID, it would be it. It would be the end. So I understand that. I understand the other side. I think people need to realize that this is not done to take away their constitutional rights. It's done to try to protect to protect a lot of people. And I see both sides of it, but at the end of the day, I think, and I don't know whether I have the right to say this or not, I think when you're entering a facility where people are only following what the facility requires, I don't think you have the right to go after them. I mean, if they're doing their job and doing their job the way they're supposed to be doing their job, and a part of their job is that you have to have a face mask on, then don't disrespect the employee for trying to hold to what they're told to do. Understand they're doing what they're told to do, and don't disrespect them. If you don't agree with the policy, then
You can send an
guess
email to
don't-
supervisor@henrietta.org and talk to me about it.
right, then don't, you know, just understand they're doing their job. At the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all people. We all care about each other. And we may be on different sides, but to get angry at somebody. I went to an office this week where I had to show my vaccine card to even enter the door. I mean, they literally wouldn't even let me in the door until I showed them my vaccine card. So I have the ability of going in there or not going into there, and I needed to go into there for my other job. So I had my vaccine card with me and I showed it and I went in the door. I just think we just need to be respectful of what people have to do their jobs. And if part of their job requires that you wear a mask to enter the facility, don't attack them. Don't look to cause a fight. They're not trying to do it to be disrespectful to you. They're trying to do it because that's what their job requires them to do.
I will note for your grandchild, especially in the deaf community, there are masks that are clear in front because of the ability of lip reading. So you may want to look into purchasing one of those masks so that
For the
you're,
whole class. I'll
There you
tell
go.
her we'll get them for the whole class so they
so that they can all make faces at each other. Okay, is there anyone from the public who wishes to say anything regarding this topic? Then hearing none, can I get my first resolution?
Oh, golly. Oh, hold on.
You don't want to,
We gotta scroll down.
want to do 5?
All right, we're skipping that one.
5 is the
Oh,
resolution.
6 is next. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
What's this one?
Yeah, so I will note that, well, let's formally.
The bills will be first, right?
56 and 57, we're skipping.
Yeah, so I will note that for the record that we are tabling resolutions number 3-56 and 3-57. Since they were unable to produce verification that the Army Corps of Engineers believes that those are still unregulated wetlands.
So, Mr. Supervisor, I have, and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-58, 2022, the authorization to pay the bills payable. I reviewed them yesterday and found them in order.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-59, 2022, to authorize the execution of a lease agreement with Dish Wireless for vacant space on the town telecommunications tower at 475 Calkins Road.
Second.
So I'll open discussion by thanking Deputy Town Supervisor Craig Eckert for all of his work on this, as well as Town Attorney Don Young and our Director of Finance Linda Salpini. This particular contract has a $1,500 a month rent payment, as well as a signing bonus equal to that same amount. So basically, once we sign this, within the first 90 days, even before their equipment is installed, they owe us essentially a month's rent.
There's escalation clause too, right?
And correct, there is an escalation clause. I think it's 3%
Yep.
a year, so it will go up accordingly.
Yep.
Any other questions on that one? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 3-60, 2022 to approve and ratify the 2022 EAP Workforce Solutions Contract for Employee Assistance Services.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-61, 2022 to reject all bids for the town newsletter printing and rebid with priority preference for local printing firms.
Second. So I will note a couple other things. I kind of assumed that all the bids were going to come from local companies, and that was my fault. Yeah, I will also note that in the past, I'd had a member of the printing industry on the town board who would notify all the local printers. So that unfortunately didn't happen, which is why I don't think any of them responded. I don't think, including the people who are printing currently, didn't respond, which is generally a good indication that they just weren't aware of it. I put together a questionnaire today that will go out with the bid package to make sure people in their response address all of the questions necessary for us to do the best value judgment. The other thing I put in there that I missed the first time were specifications for the binding, the bulk mailing. Thank you. The preparation for bulk mailing. So that was one of the problems I have with the out of town companies. I don't know how they were going to get the stuff to the US Post Office, other than I envisioned them sending us the 18,000 copies, and we would have to count them out and put them in the bundles and do all that work, which of course we don't have anyone to do that. So, like I said, this is much better. I will note that we did have somebody who put in a FOIL request for the winning bid. I have basically told them I will give you the response with the dollar amount redacted, and I will give you the unredacted dollar amount after these bids are open, because I don't want to create an unfair bidding solution where the people who previously had done the low bid, everybody knows their answer. So
Good move.
any other questions, comments? And yes, we will be reaching out to local printing firms to let them know that we've got this out there and ask them to respond. Obviously, if you're a local bidding, or if you're a local printing company listening to this, please review and respond if you can, if you're interested. Any other comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-62, 2022, to authorize the supervisor to execute a fire protection and code consulting service agreement with GHD Consulting Service Incorporated.
Second.
So again, this and also, by the way, the EAP, we are adding to our checklist for the organizational meeting so that these are all done at the organizational meeting. But this one fortunately wasn't a big deal if we waited to do it now, but. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-63/2022 to approve and ratify an agreement with SUNY Geneseo, I believe for internship. In which department?
History.
History.
Seconded.
Any discussion? So as noted in the workshop, basically SUNY Geneseo was able to obtain a grant for these paid internships. And then the town historian, Tina Thompson, applied for one of those students and we were selected. So we will have an intern provide services to help categorize a lot of the historic information we have, and it will be at no cost to taxpayers. So congratulations, Tina, on that accomplishment.
Yeah.
Great
this is
job.
Great.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-64/2022 to call for a public hearing regarding the establishment of extension number 224 to the Henrietta Sewer District number 1 for Rock River Apartments.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Belanca, before I do, would you be able to move your microphone a little bit closer? We can hear you, but not as well as everybody else.
Is this
Thank you.
better?
Thank you very much. All right, now I'm going to do as I was instructed. Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Can I put in the records that we have the best damn town clerk in the country, perhaps?
We'll second that.
Can I third that?
I thought my wife was here for a minute. I was told to do what I was instructed.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-65/2022 to call for a public hearing regarding the establishment of extension number 171 to the Henrietta Water District number 1 for Rock River Apartments.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-66/2022 to accept the dedication of roadways and storm sewers for Chelsea Meadows subdivision section number 3.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-67/2022 to accept the dedication of sanitary sewers for Chelsea Meadows subdivision, section 3.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-68/2022. To authorize the supervisor to sign an abandonment of easement 1100 Miracle Mile Drive.
Seconded.
I will note that this does have the change that we talked about at the workshop where this is conditioned upon, subject to the prerequisite condition that we have the new easement, the new water main in place and recorded before we abandon the old.
Good.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-69 /2022 to authorize the attorney for the town to sign the certiorari stipulation agreement for Barbary Cove.
Second.
Pretty close.
You did it
Good.
good.
Almost got it.
Any discussion?
I will note that I did actually call a lawyer to consult on the pronunciation. Any mistake I made in the pronunciation is my own, and he did not charge me any fee for the service.
It is definitely one of those words that it does not sound like it is spelled. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-70/2022 to declare items surplus materials from the engineering department.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-71/2022 to appoint a delegate and alternate delegate for the Association of Towns Annual Business Meeting.
Second. Any discussion?
I see you got to be the delegate.
Well, I didn't get to be the delegate. None of you guys would step up. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. I guess that's part of why I get paid the big bucks. I have to be the delegate. And to any taxpayers out there, they're not really big bucks. It's a really good salary. I have not taken a raise since stepping into office. Gotta say that stuff. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-72/2022 to appoint Timothy Lessing as the superintendent of highways for the town of Henrietta.
Second.
Any discussion? I will just note that he was already appointed, but we, for cut and paste error from last year, we used the acting title. He actually this year becomes the superintendent of highways. Any further discussion?
Congratulations.
Yeah, I will note that both Tim Lessing as superintendent of highways and Mike Catalano as commissioner of public works have been doing a phenomenal job, having taken over from Chuck Marshall. And I've been very happy with where they're going with the stuff and the culture they're trying to put in down there. And, you know, as we're looking at innovative stuff, and they've been consulting with a number of other town superintendents of highways, as well as our deputy town supervisor, our engineer. They meet with us every week on Tuesday at an engineering meeting to go over all this stuff. Just been doing a phenomenal job getting the moving the DPW forward. So you guys did a good job in your appointment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 3-73, 2022, which authorizes the return of interest to the general fund, which I believe is a little bit around, it's about $250, something like that.
255.45.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution number 3-74/2022 to acknowledge a donation.
Can I interrupt a second? I just realized we hadn't filled you in on this, the procedure. If on the resolution, it doesn't have a subject, you read the whole resolution. We do that for any of those resolutions
Special ones.
that accept donations or honor somebody. So, sorry.
I'm thrilled to.
Yep.
Resolution number 3-74/2022. Whereas Janice Butts has donated $200 to the Henrietta Public Library in support of the acquisition of large print and children's books. And whereas a check in the amount of $200 was received by the library director, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks Janice Butts for her generosity.
Second.
Discussion?
Every year that I've been on the board, Janice has very generously donated to the Henrietta Public Library. So, her faithfulness and dedication to the Henrietta Public Library is just, it's really phenomenal.
Maybe in the future, the near future, we could bring her into a meeting and present her with a certificate of appreciation.
We can, in fact, boy, it's very possible that Mary Beth produced the certificates that we normally sign and present to them. With all the craziness that was going on with Delaware River Solar, I suspect they are still sitting on my circular table.
Oh, okay.
But what you can do is I'll have them available at the next meeting and we can sign them then. Normally we sign them and present. Now, like I said, some people show up in person. Sometimes we just thank them. I don't know that we necessarily always do it for the donations, but we could certainly do for this multi-year, we could certainly do one for Janice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is one that I do have to sign. I just don't remember what it was for. It was a crazy day today. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-75/2022. Whereas MVP Healthcare has donated $500 to the town of Henrietta Senior Center in support of wellness programming for seniors. And whereas a check in the amount of $500 was received by the senior center coordinator, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks MVP Healthcare for their generosity.
Seconded.
Discussion?
Was this a grant that our rec department or senior center applied for, or I'm just curious?
I don't know that.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Pam.
Oh, okay. Pam Grumman, Director of Parks and Recreation. So Shelley has been in communication with them. She didn't have a grant application that she showed me, but she was expecting this.
That's
So I
fantastic.
think they reached out, but I can confirm that with her.
Wonderful. I just think that's a really great addition to the senior center.
I suspect this is similar to, a number of companies have programs like this, like we just I think it was at the last meeting with the Home Depot,
Yes.
maybe two
right.
meetings ago. You know, so, but like I said, Pam can verify that. But yes, it says a lot about the senior center. And because obviously we're not the only senior center that MVP Healthcare works with, so.
Yeah.
I will just say, if you've not been to the senior center, especially town board members, pay a visit on a Wednesday. The one thing that is the universal truth there, they all love the senior center, and especially they love Shelley. She does a phenomenal job, and you know, deserves the credit and the acclaim she gets from the people. But you know, she does a great job there, and we're very fortunate to have the senior center in our community.
There's a number of seniors who you get feedback all the time that is the entirety of their social life right now. And it's like family down there for them. Outstanding job by Shelley
Yep. And her entire team.
and her
Yes.
team. Yeah.
Yep. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-76, 2022, to make appropriate transfers and adjustments per the 2021 adopted budget.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 3-77, 2022 to hire personnel and authorize the attendance incentive pay.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-78/2022. That is to issue a negative declaration and adopt local law number 1 of 2022 to amend the Henrietta zoning code to require a special use permit for the retail sales of firearms and ammunition.
Seconded.
Any further discussion beyond what we already discussed at the public hearing?
I would just add that it might be, if the law hasn't changed, I just wanted to make you aware that retail sales of firearms and ammunition can take place in a residential area as well, based on the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms FFL license. So I don't think that was the focus of the resolution, but just want.
Yeah, I will note that the resolution is specifically for commercial districts, so it wouldn't apply to the residential home. And they also, there are, you know, under the FFL, that there's limits in terms of the amount they can sell. They're not considered, you know, a
Yeah.
retail store like this.
It's not a high volume deal.
Correct.
Our supervisor and councilman, I think we had discussed this, the supervisor and I, and our position is that this applies to retail sale, and the FFL, I don't think is a, you know, it's not a retail shop, right? So we don't think it would apply to the FFL, correct, supervisor?
That is correct.
For that reason, yeah.
That was our discussion. And, you know, a lot of times, yeah, it's basically, again, this is specifically retail firearms and ammunition sales. And again, if you look at the law, it's adding that as a use that requires a special use permit in the commercial districts.
Right.
So now if somebody's house were in the commercial districts, does it start to get gray? The chance that someone whose house is in the commercial district also happens to be a federal firearm licensed dealer, it's probably slim.
Very slim.
So, any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
And now we have a motion on this. Do I?
No, well, first you put the thing forward and then we'll have Rick put his motion to amend it.
Thank you.
Tax law 477, right?
466K,
466? Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution number 3-79/2022 to adopt local law number 2 of 2022 to provide tax exemption for volunteer firefighter and ambulance personnel.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes,
Mr. Page.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion under tax law 466, section B, that we specifically
No,
approve.
Hold on a second. So the real property tax law is 466K. We are
Sorry.
adding section B to our law to cover subsection 3 of 466K.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we add under tax law 466K, section B, which allows a 20-year lifetime exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance people who live in the town of Henrietta and have completed 20 years of service.
Second.
Okay, so we are now discussing the amendment to the resolution.
Correct.
I think it's, when we said that we were including it in all the subsections, I didn't realize that. To be perfectly honest, I missed that. I think Michelle missed it as well. We just didn't catch it. That's, I agree with Don. We should clarify it. It was our belief we were incorporating all the stuff from 466K. That was the intent the entire time, but I agree that we should clarify it by adding this section B. Any further discussion? Okay, so we are now going to vote on whether to make the amendment. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So now we are discussing and we'll be voting on resolution 3-79 as amended by Councilmember Page's amendment. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have resolution 3-80 to adopt local law number 3 of 2022 to update the town code with respect to Cold War veteran property tax exemption.
Seconded.
Any further discussion beyond the discussion that already occurred in the public hearing? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Councilmember Page,
Aye.
Councilmember Belanca,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Is there any public discussion, discussion items or comments from the public? Kevin?
Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. Good evening. I speak not only as a resident of the town of Henrietta, but also as Monroe County co-chairman of the group Divide New York. We have sample resolutions for cities, town, or villages to encourage the state legislature to pass in 2 different years an amendment that would be voted on by the voters of New York State the following year to divide the state into 3 autonomous regions within one state and relieve some of the burdens of taxing regulation, and especially on upstate and Long Island and the municipalities and school districts and businesses, residents
Kevin, would you be able to send that in electronically as well?
Yes, I can photograph it with my phone and email it.
Yes, thank you.
If you send it to, yeah, you can also just send it to townboard@henrietta.org and it'll get to all of us. Town board, all one word. Do they have a, oh, New Amsterdam, Montauk, and New York? Got it. Yeah, is there anything that has a lot more clarity on this? Because that, I have so many questions on this.
Well, it's, as I, basically, well, each, New Amsterdam would be all of upstate north of Rockland and Westchester counties, and then New York City would be another region, and then Montauk would consist of Rockland, Westchester, Nassau, and Suffolk County. Basically, the legislators from in addition to being state legislatures and the state government passing state laws, the legislators from in their respective autonomous regions, and then each autonomous region will also have its own sub-governor, and they could pass resolutions and even veto state legislation that would be detrimental for their autonomous region, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's the part that I need to better understand is what is an autonomous region before I could put my personal, or I'll call it professional support behind something like this. I would really want to understand this.
Yes, I will contact my my other co-chair and our regional chair and the group chair in Albany.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
Could I chime in a second here?
Absolutely.
I meant to chime in on the last resolution, but I spaced and I missed it. Michelle, our town assessor, had some clarification on veteran service dates, and if I could just give her the floor and let her speak to that.
Oh, I did see that text. I thought that was during the previous discussion. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. I'll make this short and sweet. So just to give you a little background, the bill number is S6888. Sponsor Brooks is the person backing the bill. And a brief description simply states to act to amend the real property tax law, the executive law, the education law, and the public health law, the civil service law, and the public officers law in relation to conforming the definition of a veteran serving in the Vietnam War era to newly enacted federal law, HR 7105, for veterans who served in country in the Republic of Vietnam from between February 28, 1961 and April 30th, 1975. They're changing that to an active duty service in the Republic of Vietnam that occurred between November 1st, 1955, approximately 6 years earlier, and same end date of April 30th, 1975. So basically they're expanding the active duty service period. So more veterans are going to, qualify for the exemptions is definitely one of the #1 outcomes. So that 1945 date has recently been updated. And let's see, it says here previously.
Michelle, so you're saying,
Yes.
is that a separate action, the 1945 date? Because that was with respect to the Cold War, correct?
Well, the war period itself really applies to both the alternative veterans exemption and the Cold War. It's just whether or not there was active duty, like for example, combat
No, I understand that a lot of times benefits for active duty are greater than they are for the Cold War alternative. I just was.
Correct.
Right. So, okay.
Yes.
What I'm getting at is, so that changes the definition for those who served in the Vietnam War would now get active duty service. What, is there also something that is shifting the Cold War start date, or is it just because it starts after? It seems to me that's essentially effectively after the end of World War II, excuse me.
So previously, anyone who who had service in the Republic of Vietnam on their DD 214, and the date was prior to 1961. I think it's February 1961. They were deemed a Cold War veteran, as opposed to now with this change. As of November 1st, 1955, 6 years earlier, if that veteran served, they can now apply for an alternative veterans exemption as opposed to the Cold War.
Okay.
Because it falls within the active duty, and like you said, the combat, possibility of combat within that time.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And hopefully they won't have to extend it to Ukraine.
Any further discussion items or comments from the public? Hearing none, are there any committee or miscellaneous reports from the board?
I have, I attended the CHS Board of Directors organizational meeting on January 11th. They do a lot of training. They did 313 hours of training in 1 month for their staff since December. And it was really interesting to see their incredible, and I forwarded some of it to you, the emergency preparedness they had for that snowstorm, including using their snowplow to plow people's driveway to get an ambulance in case it was needed. But I also wanted to share with you, and a lot of people didn't realize that FEMA sent ambulances from all over the country that were housed in Batavia, so that our local ambulances could do the emergency work, taking their people to the hospital. And the FEMA ambulances were able to take people home from the hospital who had been released but had no family or no other way to get there, which allowed our local ambulance to do the emergent work. They took up the slack by bringing people home from the hospital. The planning was just incredible. I was impressed with the whole thing. I did attend the board meeting last night at the Henrietta the Rush Henrietta School District, along with Millie. I think we already discussed most of what went on there with the masking and all that. And they did, like I said, they did also approve the 20-year veteran or the 20-year service for ambulance and fire. That was pretty much the highlights of the meeting. That's it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I attended the youth board meeting on January 10th, and they reported on a number of successful events. They had a teen night in December that was very well attended. I think 62 students between the grades 6 and 9 were there. They were highly anticipating at the meeting the Martin Luther King event, which was spectacular as it always is. There are 2 open positions on that board right now, 1 adult and 1 student position. The deadline for that is January 28th. And also the selections for the Henrietta Youth Hall of Fame deadline is January 31st. And they're looking forward to having that meeting so they can bring in 26 more fantastic kids in the community.
Great, thank you.
Library, I don't really have anything other than, library is open. They've got story time for little ones. They've got story times for older ones. There's all kinds of events. Check the website. And I just want to thank the staff at the library because they are constantly finding new ways to allow people to attend the library, to have events, whether they're through Zoom or whether they're in person. And, they just work so hard to make it so easy for you to be able to get things from the library, and they're always thinking outside of the box. So I just want to commend the library staff.
I'll note they also partnered to put on a very successful job fair.
Yes.
And that it, you know, that the interesting thing is, you know, the people who do these, they are active, you know, do these programs with other towns. And so when you hear them talk about our library, now maybe they say this stuff about every library, but I suspect that's not the case. They were extremely complimentary of how well our library was run, you know, how well they helped partner to put the events on, whole 9 yards. So, you know, hats off to our team at the library. They do a really good job. And they had a very good turnout. For the employers were very appreciative of the event and had a lot of good leads on potential employees. So
I think I'd like to just say that the diversity committee still has openings. So if anyone is interested in applying, that would be great. We are starting to do the interview process in order to begin getting that together.
and I will note that the state of the town, which normally is done in January, we decided we prefer to have an in-person state of the town. So it will be March 30th. I was searching to make an absolute confirmation of that date, but I believe I did have that RIT and Conference Center was available that day. So obviously as we'll get closer, I'll provide more information. The event is actually sponsored by the Henrietta Chamber of Commerce, as it has been for years. And then typically what I've been doing is after that event, I will take select slides from that event and put them in the spring newsletter so that even people who don't make it to the event can still see some of the highlights from the state of the town. I will also note that we've been making a lot of really good progress on the local waterfront revitalization plan. We're getting close to we're starting to assemble the actual packet. I've done a lot of work on new updated plans of pretty much every project in town. The last one I have left is the updates for Breeze Park. Rush has got most of theirs in. And we have a waterfront advisory committee coming up to go over that. To put together, then we will have a second public presentation where anybody can see the updates, see what we've done as far as the local waterfront revitalization plan. So a lot of exciting possibilities in that. You know, as I will note, just because it's in the plan doesn't mean we're going to do it. But if it's not in your plan, you have a hard time getting funding for it. So it's a wide range of projects. And a lot of interesting possibilities there. Craig, did you want to give us an update on the sustainability committee and especially the LED update?
Sure. Yep. Thank you. Craig Eckert, Deputy Town Supervisor. Sustainability Committee, we missed a meeting last week. We're going to try to have one tomorrow. A couple things moving forward are injection of funds into the one New York State EV car charger program. So we're going to go after those 4 chargers we tried to go before, and the funding dried up pretty quickly. So we didn't get an application in time. And when I say we, it's me. We lost a little bit of a window. So that funding has been reintroduced for a little bit. So we're going to try to go in for that. Street lights, they're actually out evaluating the lights right now and finishing that process up. We did receive back the actual buyback number from RG&E, which turned out to be a lot lower than what they originally even anticipated to us, the budgetary number that they gave us last year. I don't have the numbers in my head to understand that, but the group from Centrica was very excited about that difference because it was going to save us a lot of money. So we're finishing up that oversight And actually, right now, you'll notice the softball field lights are on because they're doing light readings right now. So don't think that anybody's out there playing softball. And hopefully they'll get turned off at 9 when the rec center closes. What else do we have going on with that? We have a meeting for community solar. And then Green Spark. I'm not sure who they are, but company reached out to us that is the ability to do an RFP for what would be community solar. The question we might have going forward is whether or not we actually reintroduce what would be a PPA, power purchase agreement, where we create our own solar array and are able to utilize that versus paying somebody else for that solar at a cheaper rate, and then being able to utilize that. Those are
We're continuing to look for the potential of a compost site, compost facility.
composting location would be great. We're trying to take a look at the end of Kramer, which was the old Henrietta Sanitation. At some point, I'm not sure when, Henrietta sold that property off, and nothing's been done with it.
They sold about 2/3 of the property, and the frustrating part is that the easement, they created a flag lot. If you don't know what a flag lot is, if you ever seen where there's like a driveway and then the property's way in the back, so it kind of looks like a flagpole. The problem is that the pole, if you will, was about 5 feet wide, so you can't get a vehicle back there. It kind of makes the parcel useless. So if we're going to be able to do that, use that as the location, we would have to work a deal out with the people who we sold the portion to. That's a brownfield, which basically means that there's a lot of potentially contamination cleanup that would have to be done before it could be developed, as it was rezoned industrial some years ago. However, there would be less cleanup if any cleanup would be required to essentially put vermiculture compost bins on the site. So I did have a talk with a couple of the residents from Karen Lee Drive who expressed some concern about commercial vehicles going down the road. I informed them that we'd actually already discussed that. And our plan, if we were to do something there, we would actually do our collection at our fill site location on Middle Road. The only reason we wouldn't put the vermiculture facility there is right now, and hopefully maybe this will change and we could just do it there, but the DEC doesn't allow vermiculture pits in the wetland buffer of a wetland, which there is a wetland right next door to the our fill site. So we're looking at other possibilities on town lands, but the idea, like I said, again, we would then partner with folks to help get the collection of the compost. We'd have potential also the ability for residents to drop off. So going back to the Karen Lee, if we were able to work out a deal there, what we would have is we would have essentially a collection bin at Middle Road, and once or twice a week, whatever was required, town personnel would load that bin up on a truck, drive to the Karen Lee site, unload it, and then that way there aren't commercial vehicles and or a bunch of people driving down this residential street. Why they created the industrial site at the end of the road, I don't know, but they did. So again, we're trying to minimize the impact on the residents who live on Karen Lee Drive. So there's a number of other initiatives, but they're a little early in the works to really go into a whole lot of details.
Yeah, we're trying to take advantage of both the community smart credits and the clean energy community credits,
Yep.
CSC and CECs. New York State's and NYSERDA's credit systems, and be interesting to see how much fundage is available to the town that we can go out and do something important with.
Yeah, so basically as you hit particular point thresholds, you then get essentially funds or grants to be able to go do, so one of the things we've talked about is we would go out and with those funds, purchase some electric vehicles for our code folks or other, could be also like the assessors drive around to do but the idea is when you look at the dollar amounts, or not dollar amounts, listen to me, the mileage amounts, they can do all the driving for a day's work on a single charge. At night, they would come in, drive it into the field and plug it in, and it'd be ready to go in the next day. And so they'd never have to use gas. We would get an all-electric vehicle for them. So that's one of the things we're looking at, to use those funds from those programs to purchase and, you know, to start to convert some of our fleet to electric vehicles. So
Fantastic.
thanks, Craig.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? I'm hearing none. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.